To order, please, members. Good. Right, welcome to the January Planning Committee. I should say for visitors that these proceedings are being recorded both visually and orally, so at any time you might be captured on camera. So please be aware of that. The proceedings also, because they're on camera, will be available, I think probably tomorrow on the Torvine website if you wish to see what went on. And for that reason, any alternative method of recording this meeting is frankly unnecessary. I'm Brian Morby, I'm chair of this committee. On my right is Rachel Beale, who's taking the minutes. On her right is Tim James, who's the Assistant Chief Legal Officer and advisor to the committee in respect of such matters. On my left immediately is Richard Lewis, who's the Development Control Manager, something like that is his title. On his left is Paul, whose name escapes me at the moment. Wheeldon, that's right, Paul Wheeldon, who's the Highways Officer. Over there is Geraint, I think it is, hiding behind the computer, who's dealing with the recording equipment. And Norman Jones, on the dais, is a team leader within the planning department. Helen Smith is a principal planner within the planning department. These are the members of the committee who will be, with myself, making the decisions which come before us today. So, do we have any apologies, please, members? Okay.
Chair, there are a number. Do you want me to read from the book?
Well, should we have Rachel tell us who we've already got?
Fine.
We have apologies from Councillors Stuart Ashley, Pam Cameron, Alan Fearser and Jessica Powell.
Any others?
That seems to tie with the list here.
Councillor Len Constance, I'd like that recorded, please, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, declarations of interest. I'm going to ask Tim James to give advice on that regard.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just remind members to record any declarations in the attendance register, please. Declarations I'm aware of, members, are as follows. Application number 6 for Pontomoyle Primary School site. Councillor Crick, I believe you wish to declare a personal and prejudicial interest in relation to that one, that application, the reason being that you're a board member of one of the applicants, being Bronavon Community Housing. Is that correct, Councillor Crick?
It is, thank you.
Okay, so when that one comes up, if you can leave the chamber at that point, please, Councillor Crick, thank you. And then Councillors Parish, Tomlinson, Taylor and James, I think in relation to all 4 of you, you have identical declarations to make in relation to items or applications 6 and 8, the Pontomoyle Primary School and the Garnteg Primary School. In relation to both those applications, you would wish to declare personal only interests, each of you, because you're members of the Pontypool Community Council who were consulted on the applications. If you could all confirm that's correct, please.
That's correct.
Yes, thank you, members. And then Councillor Stuart Evans, in relation to application 7 on the list, the Gilchrist Thomas Industrial Estate matter, I think you wish to declare a personal only interest as a member of Blaenavon Town Council who were consulted on that application. Is that correct, please, Councillor?
That is correct.
Thank you very much. Any other declarations, members, that you're aware of at this stage? Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thanks so much. Okay, can we go to item 3 then, minutes of the planning meeting held on the 15th of December. And before we just run through those, can I thank Councillor Parish for chairing the meeting in my absence, at least at the beginning of the meeting, for which I'm grateful. So, anything arising from page 1? 3. Four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Are you happy for me to sign those as a true record of the proceedings? Or indeed for Councillor Parish to sign them as a true record, as she was in the chair for that meeting? Yep, thank you very much. Okay, item 4 is a report on the annual performance, and Richard Lewis is going to introduce that.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly to say, this is a new thing. We are now required by the Welsh Government to submit a yearly performance report. The Welsh Government made it quite clear that they're expecting a significant improvement to planning authorities. Sorry. And if I can refer you to page 37, this is where the National Assembly has set out the performance framework against which they will judge local councils across Wales. In the middle of that table, they've presented targets under good, fair, or councils that need to improve.
Everybody got that page?
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
On the right-hand side of that column is our actual performance for this year and for last year. This year actually represents the 2014 to 2015 financial year. We've scored reasonably well, not brilliant, but reasonably well. The one that we are falling down on is over the page, on page 38. One of the criteria is that we have our planning applications online so that public can access records via the internet. We don't have that yet, but we have now procured a new system, and by July of this year we should be able to present our applications online. This financial year, the statistics or records performance are significantly better than they were during this financial year, and we will be reporting those after March. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any questions or comments on the report?
Move the report, Chair.
You're happy just to note it? Okay, all those in favour, please show. That's agreed, thank you. So the next item is number 5, planning appeals. Can I just mention that the person who presented this appeal to Welsh Government we both served on the same committee of a local charity a few years ago, Mr. Jeff Jones. This is only for you to note the report, and therefore I've been advised by Tim James that there is no need for me formally to declare an interest. I just want you to know, in case anybody thinks that the last time he had an application to this committee, I declared a prejudicial interest and left the room. I've been advised there's no reason for me to do that, as the report is simply for noting. So, anybody got any comments with regard to the report?
Can somebody go up and oil the clock?
Is that the noise, is it? Oh, right. Rachel, can you go and do that? Okay, well, apart from that, which had really nothing to do with the appeals, it was a different sort of appeal, I think, from Councillor Seaborn. Are you happy simply to note this report? Oh, sorry, Norman needs to say a quick word before we do that.
Thank you, Chair. We did think that it would be useful to bring certain appeal decisions to the attention of members. Obviously, you've got the report in front of you, but just to highlight some of the issues that we look at and inspectors look at during the course of various appeals. So just a quick presentation in relation to this proposal, which was actually determined under delegated powers. Okay, and it relates to the former access steps which went into Abersychan High School, and there was a reorganisation of access arrangements which meant that the steps became redundant and were therefore sold off as a separate parcel of land. And then we were faced with after giving pre-application advice in the negative, with an application for a single dwelling. And there you can see the steps as they are now, and they were redundant. Here's another picture. And this is just a view further up the street. So this is Firth Road, single carriageway, but it is one way. There's, going back there, there's another dwelling on the other side, the lower side of the plot, and what we were faced with was a irregular shaped dwelling proposal, 3 stories on the rear and at the front, with a balcony, with parking along the side and at the front there, or an integral parking below. And now we refuse this in terms of both the character of the area being out of sync with the overall appearance of the area, and also on highway reasons in terms of the impact of the lack of visibility from the site and the impact on highway safety in relation to potential conflict with pedestrian users as well. So that was an image of the house which we felt didn't fit in with the character of the area. And from the report, you can see that the inspector went along with us. He acknowledged that sometimes you can get innovative design, however that's got to be allowed taken into account the context of the area. So he went along with us on that basis, and he also went along with our reason for refusal on highway grounds. So I don't know if Paul wants to comment in relation to the highway aspect.
Thank you, Chair. Primarily it was a lack of visibility from the access there onto Frood Road. The existing boundary walls there are very high, and it meant that if vehicles were exiting our site, they wouldn't be able to see pedestrians on the footway, and they also wouldn't be able to see any traffic that was coming up Frood Road. We did located a speed indicator device just very north of the site. It was only probably about 5 metres from the site access, which indicated that the 85th percentile speeds were 30 mile an hour and above. So we had a fairly strong grounds for requiring standard visibility displays there, which we could nowhere near achieve. So fortunately, the inspector went along with us and opposed the application.
Okay, thank you both. Any questions or comments? You content to note the report? Thank you very much. Okay. On item 6, which is an application in respect of the Pontymoyle Primary School, Cumfields Pontypool site, and Helen Smith will make a presentation in respect of that.
Thank you, Chair. Before I get into the presentation, there's just a late representation to note. following their initial comments of no observations, the Community Council have submitted some late representations, just stating they have concerns with regard to the impact on construction traffic and any possible danger to adjoining properties. The application we're considering today relates to the former Pontypridd Royal Primary School. The school has been vacant since 2014, following the closure of the school. The application before us today is for 39 dwellings. It's a full planning application. Access to the site is off Hillside Drive, with one main access in leading to some cul-de-sacs and some private drives. We have a mix of terrace properties and semi-detached properties, and also a couple of apartment units as well, all two-storey properties. The application has been amended since it's originally submitted. The local area of play was originally proposed in this area. However, following discussions and negotiations, we requested that it be located centrally within the site, and together with some additional public open space to serve the site and to offset the loss of the playing field. We have also here a dark corridor. At the moment, there is a maternity roost in the building, and the ecology report submitted recommends certain mitigation measures. This includes the provision of the dark corridor and additional planting to support that. There are differences in levels throughout the site. Here we have a couple of sections through the site showing the new properties and the lowering the levels further to the south. And here we have the drawings of the actual dwellings themselves, and obviously the apartments will actually look very similar to the standard two-storey properties. Have had an objection from the resident of number 114 Hillside Drive, along with other residents within the area, but this occupier was very concerned about the impact of the adjacent properties on his privacy. Additional sections were requested from the developer to ensure that the levels were low enough so that they weren't going to be unacceptable overlooking. They've also provided some additional planting to help screen the properties from the garden area of number 114. Here we have some photographs. As this demonstrates the differences in levels. Here we have the existing playing yard, and this is St Matthew's Road, and the existing retaining wall will be retained. This is on the southern boundary of the site. Again, you see significant levels differences. And this is a view over to the rear of the properties on Cwmnysgoy Road, which they back onto the site, but they are separated by the pathways, and they are at a much lower level. And here we go, another view. Retaining wall on St Matthew's Road. Here we have the playing field where the proposed dwellings will be located. The existing school that will be demolished as part of the proposal. Here we have Hillside Drive. It's in this location here, where the play area originally was proposed. There are two dwellings in this location now. And here we have the point of the access. This is the lay-by here. The access will be created off this road. Here we have, just in the corner there, you can see number 114. These trees are to be retained, and further planting along this boundary. And here you can just see the lowering levels further south you go on the site. And this is just another view of the lay-by. The access will come here. Here the properties on the opposite side of Hillside Drive, which are at a higher level.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions, please? Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The one thing that I'd like to mention is that on the site visit, I did mention that that there was in 2010, there was what do you call it, a time capsule was buried from the school to celebrate the 100 years of the school. And I realise that this isn't a thing for the planners, but I just hope that the developer will respect the people's wishes, and if that could be dug up and replaced, when the site is finished, just to say that that the capsule was buried, I'd appreciate that. The other things that I would like to mention are, and I've read the report, and Highways have given a good report, but because of the amount of traffic that travels up Hillside Drive, across St Matthew's Road and down Farm Road, what I would like to see, if we could, is after the development is finished, perhaps 6 months after, we could revisit the site, revisit it with Highways. In St Matthew's Road, people have been calling out for WRO lines. There have been a host of issues with Highways, and I would just like to try to satisfy people that perhaps after the site is developed, that perhaps the Highways will come in and make an assessment again on the access to the site, because it is on the site that itself has been built. I've got no issues at all with the access there. It's just the access. It's just the ongoing roads, Hillside Drive, St Matthew's Road, and Farm Road, where there could be issues, because I'm having issues there already. But if I could just put that to the committee, that perhaps 6 months after it's built, that we can have another Highways assessment of the immediate area to see how things are going, and if there needs to be anything tweaked there.
Anyone else? Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair. As in relation to the comments received from Public Health, which states that the land in question is a former use, and whilst the usage is low risk, the presence of contamination from heating fuels or asbestos cannot be discounted without a survey. And it goes on to say that this should be agreed with the Welsh Government. Has that agreement been put in place?
Yes, there's a condition on, I'm trying to find the number of the condition, if you bear with me. Condition number 11, this wording is agreed with the Welsh Government in terms of the wording of the condition, and that's the standard condition that we use, requiring a contamination report to be done before commencing development. And if any contamination is found, there's various steps they then have to do for cleaning it up, and then verification before they can start development.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Taylor.
Chair, what Councillor Waite did ask for, I think, as far as I'm concerned, I would support him on that. But what is the planning authority on it? Are they prepared to support him?
Well, we are the planning authority, Barry, so yeah, we'll deal with it in due course. Councillor Seaborn.
Just to carry on from what Councillor Taylor has just said, Councillor Waite made two recommendations, one for the time capsule to be reburied, and one for after 6 months another traffic assessment. I would like to support that, and second his recommendations, Chair.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, what we've got then is a proposal from Councillor Waite with regard to both the time capsule and traffic assessment after after 6 months after completion of the work, shall we say. That's not really a matter for the planning committee to determine, but there's no reason why your recommendation can't be put to the appropriate officers or executive member for consideration in due course. It seems fairly simple, low-key stuff that we would like to see these things taken forward in due course. So if we put that as an amendment to or an additional recommendation to what's being recommended in the main body of the report, as a request rather than a demand, shall we say.
I'd be happy with that, Chair.
Yep. Okay, are we all happy then with the recommendation subject to the conditions and that additional request both to the Highways Department and indeed to, well, I suppose to Bron Avon and the developers to actually locate that time capsule and take good care of it? Okay, all happy with that? Thank you very much. Okay, item number 7, which is demolition.
Should I just get Councillor?
We'll see if she takes the hint from that bell.
Mr. Chairman, just before we move on, we didn't vote on that last application.
The last application. Well, everybody was nodding, so I took that as consent. Thank you very much.
Chair, should we have a show of hands on it?
Okay. Yes, all those in favour, please show.
If you stand outside again a minute, only a second. Go on. Just close your eyes and you know nothing. Show of hands, right.
Okay, that's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Come back, Veronica, please. Okay, so item 7, which is an application in respect of demolition of existing buildings and erection of replacement food production unit in the Thomas Gilchrist, or the Gilchrist Thomas Industrial Estate in Blenavon. Norman.
Thank you, Chair. Members may recall this application was reported to the December committee, and at that time there were revised figures relating to floor space which were presented verbally. However, what wasn't carried out was a further assessment. Later in the report there was an assessment in relation to the original figures in relation to the CSS parking guidelines. So in terms of the figures that were presented, the December report said there was an over-provision of 23 spaces compared to the floor space figures. However, the agents have since the December meeting confirmed that the floor space to be 5,837 square metres, and that in comparison with the CSS parking guidelines would give a requirement of 72 spaces. The on-site provision that is proposed, and that's a reminder of the condition of the factory after it was fire damaged, and those are the new proposals. The scheme that's been presented shows 77 spaces. So what we have now is an over-provision of 5 spaces compared to the CSS parking standards, as opposed to the 23 space over-provision which we originally reported. So whilst there still is an over-provision, it isn't to the same extent that we originally stated in the December report, and that's why we brought it back to members before issuing the planning permission for that to be considered. In relation to the, we did have a representation from an adjacent factory which stated they were concerned about parking on street, and that was reported in the original report. We've since provided them with an update on the figures, and their position really hasn't changed. Their concerns still remain. However, they recognise the improvement from the existing, and we've added a condition in terms of requiring the parking spaces as shown to be marked out and made available for the parking of employees and visitors during working hours. And today we've also had a note from the applicants, who are Abergavenny Fine Foods, who state that should parking issues occur outside the site, they will provide details so that they can be contacted, and they would take steps to ensure that staff will be requested to park on the on-site parking provided. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any comments or questions? Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I note your comments in relation to vehicles reversing out onto the road, and I'm encouraged greatly by the letter that you've received spelling out that it'll be in their own curtilage that the parking spaces will be used. And I would support the amendment to the planning application.
Councillor Crick.
Given that they're down to now just 5 additional places, is there or was there any suggestion that they would be using some of that green space at a later date if need be? Because certainly when you're up there, it's often very obvious during the day that, generally speaking, those different units around there seem to have become very successful, and there are problems with parking generally.
Given that there is still an over-provision in comparison with the CSS guidelines in terms of parking, and then we're satisfied with the circulation space and deliveries which are at this end of the factory, it wouldn't be legitimate for us to ask for further car parking. They are complying with the guidelines, and there is still an over-provision, and we have added the conditions requiring them to be made available during all working hours.
Seaborn.
Thank you, Chair. If there are no more questions from members, and I would like to second Councillor Evans' proposal and accept this recommendation by officers, subject to all the conditions.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this one? Okay, well, we have a proposal to approve the recommendation subject to the conditions as outlined in the report. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you. Will I get my iPad to do what I want it to do? There we are, I think. Item 8 is the proposed 5 classroom extension to hall and alterations at Garntake Primary School. 2 things really I want to say before we discuss that and before I ask Norman to talk about it. One is that just to assure everybody that this is not about the proposal put forward by the Education Service in Torvine to reorganise primary school provision in the area of Abersacan. This is a planning issue only, and that is that if and when that particular education proposal went forward, it would have to follow any planning decision that had been made in respect of the site or sites. And this is only concerned with the planning issue. So any objection to this proposal has to be in relation to material planning considerations, nothing to do with educational provision per se. Hopefully that's understood. The second thing is that since the agenda was issued and since the normal date for receipt of representations or requests to address the committee, a letter has been received with regard to this particular matter from Mrs. A.M. Cordy, which effectively is saying that this planning application should be deferred or rejected on the basis that the transport report is factually inaccurate, has inaccurately projected traffic flow and parking requirements, and an updated report needs to be provided before planning can be considered accurately and subsequently approved. And secondly, that the ecological method statement needs to be updated to reflect a more realistic timing of works, and the Planning Committee should request this work be conducted before planning is approved. Those are issues which I've asked the appropriate officers to seek to address when they present this report, but it seemed to me that it was important, even though strictly speaking it was out of time, that members should be aware of those particular views and expect those issues to be addressed as they present the report, rather than simply ignore it because it was out of time. There are potentially two speakers on this particular item, an objector and a responder. The responder may choose not to, I can't think of the word, what's the word? Sorry? Yeah, well, I was thinking, yeah. I was thinking of a different word, but anyway, respond, dependent on what the objector actually says. So I'm going to ask Mr. Kinsella, if you would enter the chamber, please, Oh, sorry. I've been reminded that you probably need to have the presentation first. Sorry about that. And so I'll be asking Norman and Paul to respond in relation to that issue I raised earlier. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just go briefly through the proposal. It was the subject of a site visit on the 7th of January, and the notes are attached in the agenda. As the Chair has stated, the proposal is part of the programme for school reorganisation, and basically what is being provided is an extension, a continuation of the school in its linear form with at a slight angle of 5 classrooms. There is also a proposal to extend the hall in this area, and the proposal will also take account of and provide for 14 additional car parking spaces which are at the front entrance to the school. And these, you can see the footprint of the extension, and then with a reorganisation of the car parking spaces and additional ones eating into the area of landscaping at the front of area of the school. These are photographs of the entrance into the school. That's a view back from looking north back towards the school. This is the situation on site currently in relation to staff car parking, and there's a landscaped area which will be adapted and the subject of works to extend the car parking area. The extension comes below this hard surfaced area, which won't be impacted. What will be impacted is this climbing wall, and there are some trees which will need to be removed, as well as the climbing wall, to accommodate the proposed car parking, proposed extension. I would also point out, before Paul comments, in relation to the position of the cycle route, and the highway officer has made revised comments in relation to the cycle route and the possibility of providing a link from the cycleway. However, the cycleway is some distance from the school. It's that linear route there on the old railway line. What is adjacent to the school is a public right-of-way, and that forms the boundary. So the highway officer has revisited that issue and considers it's impractical to gain an improvement from the cycle route in terms of dealing with any increased numbers. In terms of the request that the ecological method statement needs to be updated from the objector, I would point to what our ecologist has said. What the protected species survey was carried out, and there was a single bat found to be present in the school. However, it wasn't found to be present in that part of the school which would be affected by the development, namely the hall or the end of the classrooms. So therefore, he considers that no further work is necessary, and the work can proceed without the need for an environmental protection licence. However, it needs to be carried out in relation and in accordance with the submitted ecological method statement. So that would be our advice in relation to that issue, that we have satisfactory information in relation to the ecological issue. Thank you, Chair.
And Paul?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, you referred earlier to a letter received from Mrs. Cordy, and that referred to the traffic impact assessment and how it was not factual, the report factually incorrect. What I would say is that the Mrs. Cody refers to says that the TA referred to 3 additional classrooms, when in fact there are 5 additional classrooms. So what she is saying is correct. The report did say 3, but there are 5. But this really is insignificant in the context of a traffic impact assessment, because the impact assessment actually refers to the increase in the number of children to the school, and it applies national trip rates to the additional pupils. So when the assessment was done, it is not incorrect, simply because they referred to the number of classrooms. It is correct in that it refers to the additional number of pupils and the trip rates associated with those pupils. So if you looked at, say, 3 classrooms, the TA said, requires 9 additional teacher spaces. Well, we've got 14 additional spaces in any event. So it simply isn't the case that the TA is not factual, and that the TA is, my view is that the TA is correct. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Fine, thanks, officers. Members, I'm being reminded again by Tim that Mr. Kinsella is going to make his speech, his contribution, 5 minutes. So this time, come on down. Thanks. Right, when you're comfy. Oh, of course, of course. You'll have 5 minutes. Tim is going to time you and give you 1 minute's warning, is it? Yep.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
My name is Kinsella. I'm a resident of Darlington. My address. This one. My name is Kinsella. I live at number 1, Seven View, Gondiford, which is directly outside the main entrance to the Gontech School. My main concerns are the referring to parking and traffic management measures in the proposal. I have correct information in that there are to be 5 classrooms, some 150 to 200 pupils. We're looking at the residential parking spaces at the main entrance. There are 8 parking spaces for residents, most of which are used during the day by residents. So there's no actual allocated parking area for visitors or people coming to the school. There are no parking provisions for residents of Hillcrest other than some of the front gardens. So that's the access route up to the main entrance to the school. The traffic flow is at critical level at the moment, with parents collecting and dropping off pupils who use the footpaths to actually park on because there's no parking space for them. And they block off the safe walking routes to school, which I am aware of as an ex-governor. And I look at this feature in that it would actually be an accident waiting to happen, in that young parents bring their children, quite a lot of them, walk to the school with the pupils that they need to drop off, and also they bring other children with them. My questions are that what parking provision can be made for the increase in the traffic. The infrastructure to the main entrance of the school and through Seven View is very inadequate. The information I have from the Highways Department gentleman at the information seminar at the school was to say that the parking area would be provided, when I asked the question, at the Millennium car park, which is down at the village, to encourage pupils to walk to school. This would be acceptable on perhaps dry days only. You'd have to eliminate the ice and snow and heavy rain. It really is not a solution. The planning, if it becomes a planning application, cannot exclude buses, deliveries, visitors. My main concern, emergency vehicles. The contractors who only access will be the main entrance through Seven View, and access to the garages that are blocked off by parked cars, which are just opposite my house, now that are also a problem for disabled residents. My wife is one of those, and the traffic will become a problem for the school. The residents, and most of all, the emergency access to the school, with cars often parked over the main fire hydrant, which is just outside my door, which is an emergency facility for a backup system for the school, which is not an ideal situation because of the lack of parking. We have a bowling club which is nearby, and we have coaches and cars coming along, and if there's a lack of parking space, then they park anywhere and everywhere on Seven View. And
1 minute to go, Mr. Kinsella.
The school run, as it's called, is a problem now at this moment, with the additional traffic that the increase in pupils will bring, will create more of a problem for us. The contractors who will need to gain access to the school will be using the main entrance, and that hazard has already proved itself in that we've had a new build at Garntech Close, and we've had a new build at Close Gochlan, which is just at the top of my street, and the traffic management by the contractors on both of those occasions was atrocious, pathetic, and very inadequate. And I think for the school, yes, I'm sure it's an ideal feature to increase schools and numbers of pupils, but the residents of Seven View and Hillcrest do need to be considered in that the infrastructure is not really adequate.
Thank you. That's time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mulvey.
Thanks. Mr. Tushingham is indicating that he doesn't wish to respond. Officers, is there anything you wish to say in response to Mr. Kinsella? Oh.
Yeah, Chair, thanks. I'll just wait for Mr. Kinsella to return. Right, okay, thanks, Chair. Yeah, schools are often a difficult area. I'm sure members are aware of all schools throughout the borough that we get problems, and I mean, I've got to be honest, the problems are real, but very often they are short-lived. They are at start and finish times to the school. What we need to bear in mind here is that this is an existing school and those problems already exist. And if as a consequence of this application we could have got provision, parking provision, turn-in facilities, if we can get them, we try and get them, but very often with these schools, that they're in centres of the community, really is where they should be to start with. It is often very difficult when you're trying to increase pupil numbers that you can get an ideal solution. An ideal solution here would be dedicated parking areas, drop-off points for parents dropping off their children, but like I said, very often in these communities that exist, and where you want to these pupils to go to school, it's often you cannot achieve these benefits. What they have achieved on this site is some additional car parking for teachers, which has got to be welcomed. Likewise, what we try and do these days is we try and build safe routes in communities, which are safer routes to school. We have carried out a programme of safer routes to this school. A lot of the roads around there are far from ideal, but that's not like any other area within Torvine, within valleys. You've always got roads in some instances without footways. You cannot get an ideal world, but what we have got to try and do is to try and say, will this increase in pupils significantly harm the highway network or the quality of life for residents, or will it harm pupils going to the school? And an increase in pupil numbers does not necessarily mean that risk is going to significantly increase, which would lead us to oppose a planning application for extensions to an existing school. Always difficult, and I can understand Mr. Kinsella's points about parents coming there, dropping off children, blocking off accesses, parking on footways. That does happen, and what we try and do is ask the schools to try and manage that effectively along with us as a highway authority. And sometimes that is difficult at schools. I think we've got to accept that. I'm faced with, do I oppose this application on the basis of the increase of pupils to this school? And my view is we as a highway authority would not support that. We as a highway authority say that this increase in pupils to this school will not significantly harm what already occurs at this particular site. If you read through the TA, which no doubt you have, you will see that it goes through it in a logical step, and even the TA says that things are not ideal outside this particular area, but it's not like any other. It's not unlike any other school within the borough. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Okay, members, any comments or questions? Councillor Seaborn, then Councillor Tomlinson, then Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question I would like to ask, which was raised by Mr. Kinsella, was the emergency access for vehicles, the fire, ambulance, as such thing, and parking over hydrants. If there was anything that went on, such as a fire, which can start at any time, at the beginning of school and at the end of school, how would the emergency vehicles access the building?
Councillor Seaborn. The school run only occurs for, say, 15 minutes at the start of the day and 15 to 20 minutes at the end of the day, so that out of that 24-hour period, there's 23 and a half hours that emergency vehicles can access a site. Another point which emergency vehicle operators always say to me is, if we need to get there, we will. So, I mean, my view is that if emergency vehicles need to get to a particular area, they will, and my experience is generally they always do. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Paul, for that, your comments there. Listening to Mr. Kinsella, I have to agree with his concerns and his comments. I know the residents of Stanley Road and around that area, that just outside of the school perimeter there is congestion, especially at peak times, and it is difficult for anyone to around that area to get access within the school itself. I can remember presenting a petition on behalf of the residents of Top Road in Gandyfeth, when their request was turned down because they wanted the highways to look at a one-way system around the Top Road area, because of the heavy vehicles and the sorts that go around that part of the highway. So I can only say that I appreciate your comments and Paul in your assessment there, but I have to say, as a councillor, I have to come down in support of the objector. Thank you.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I must say I've got the greatest sympathy with Mr. Kinsella and the residents who live near the school. But having said that, all schools, as Paul has eloquently pointed out, experience the problem that we've heard of this afternoon. I think it's a case of trying to educate people, especially parents, dropping children off and encourage them to use safe routes to school. But unfortunately, in my experience, that seems to be falling on deaf ears. So although I've got the greatest sympathy with Mr. Kinsella and the residents, I do feel it I would have to accept the officer's recommendation in this regard. My councillor has already broached the subject which I was going to bring up as well in regard to emergency access. I don't quite accept what you were saying, Paul. If they've got to get through, they will get through, because some instances they will not get through. So I am still concerned about that, but having said all that, I feel I would have to support the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Seaborn.
Thanks for allowing me to come back in, Chair. One thing I did miss out, what Mr. Kinsella did said, and it did concern me, was the disabled parking for residents. Is there anything that we can do as the planning to recommend that disabled bays be a place for the residents who live close to the school?
Go on, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Disabled parking bays are normally within Torvine provided by our department, but at the request of social services. And disabled spaces are for use by the application comes from a particular resident supported by social services and an occupational therapist. So the request is made. The bay then is normally put in linked to an address, a property address, but those bays are available for use by anyone that's disabled. So we would normally put them outside not in specific parking bays which are for primarily residents, because remember, if you put in disabled persons parking bays within, say, those 7 spaces, and we put in 2 disabled spaces, there are 2 residents that can no longer park within that area at times when the school is not operational. So it's got its difficulties in doing something like that, because if you put them for disabled people, then residents that are not disabled can't park in those bays which they would have once seen as bays that they could have parked in. So it does have its disbenefits as well as its benefits, and I probably would think carefully about supporting personally myself something like that. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Seaborn, are you happy with that?
Well, I'll accept Paul's explanation, Chair, but I'm not really, happy about it.
I think it's difficult. We need to be careful that we don't overstep our powers in respect of planning committee. It seems to me that at any time a local member can ask for highways to review a particular issue. Obviously, if there's a social services input because of the nature of the particular issue being referred, then there's a set process for that. But if we were to add a review of parking provision to every approval that we're given by this committee, then we wouldn't do much else, I suppose, or it would happen for every application. So I don't think that's something we should do, but that doesn't by any means stop the local member making representations accordingly. Taylor.
Chair, I just wanted to ask a question. We've heard from Mr. Tony Kinsella. I see that Mr. John Teshingham is here, and he indicated that he didn't want to speak. But if he's come here, surely he wanted to say something. So should we really hear what Mr. Teshingham's got to say?
It's up to him, but as I said at the beginning of this particular item, we were not here to discuss the educational or school issues incumbent within this application, because it's not our business, frankly. It is us to consider the planning issues, and that we have been doing. Mr. Kinsella focused on an issue relating to traffic, parking, and so on. And although clearly the problem relates to a proposal relating to schools, it isn't Mr. Tushingham's role to be able to address any of the issues that Mr. Kinsella dealt with. So, no, I think he was quite right not to respond, because the person to respond was Paul Wheeldon and Norman Jones. So. Keith.
If I could ask, just I note in the on page 117 that the reference to the provision of acceptable provision for cycle facilities, and that's part of the conditions for approval of the consent as well, the recommendation for approval. It was just really a little bit more detail about that, really, what they would be expected to provide there. And I know that that seems to be an important issue, really, in the consideration of highways, and I know that you can make provision for cycles. There's another thing, getting people to actually use them, I suppose, but what would be expected to be provided in relation to cycle facilities?
The report says that the cycle provision, the cycle storage is fully taken up, so we would be looking for further provision on site commensurate with the increase. That would be my response with it.
Yeah, that was my view as well, Councillor James, is that there's existing cycle stands within the existing school and they're all full. So there's obviously quite a number of pupils that already cycle to school, so what we were looking to do is to increase that provision, obviously in discussion with the headmistress and the school.
So there seems already to be a willingness in the school to encourage pupils to cycle as much as possible here. So it's really to to enforce that and to increase the provision for them. Is that the view?
Yeah, it's to enhance that existing provision. The school have also produced a travel plan as well, so they're quite keen to engage with the authority with regards to school travel.
Anyone else? Anybody in a position to move something? Come on, don't be shy. Councillor Waite.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendations with all the recommendations, Mr. Chair.
With all the conditions?
All the conditions, yeah.
Yep. Is that seconded?
I would second that, Chair.
Yeah, a number of hands were competing then, so are you ready to vote? Nobody wants to put an amendment or anything? Okay. All those in favour of the proposition, please show. All those against? That's one, so that's, I can't count, 8, 9 in favour, 1 against. So, fine. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Kinsella. Thanks for your patience. Thanks. Next meeting, folks, you'll be pleased to know, is only 4 weeks away, on the 16th of February. So, see you then.